Yeah, we crossed desert for 2 months. And it's like a miracle. How could a human being survive in 2 months without food? This is what we did. For me, I had hope in me. I have determination. I had the hard work. But all we had to eat was the leaves from the tree. We had mud, and was not enough. But I was having those values that were instilled in me by my parents to not give up hope, to always try hard. I was almost to give up in desert because I was not able to walk barefooted. I was so emaciated. There was no enough food. People, there was no water to drink. So, but I had positive mindset. I say I'm going. I don't have enough food. I don't have anything in my stomach, but I have one thing. I went to work hard. I went to try my best. So by luck again, I survived and went to a refugee camp. I was in that refugee camp for 4 years, and because of another civil war, then we were chased away at gunpoint. My life was not really good. After I was, after I reached the camp, I was in a group of small people, just young boys taking care of others, each others, and because uh, I began to abandon the values that I was given. I tried to isolate myself from people. I tried to go to a dark corner during the night and try to ask myself crazy questions. When is war coming to an end? When am I going to Sudan? When am I going to see my sibling? But I think one night, a dream came to me. He said, Gabriel, the way you are living, you're not going to survive. You remember, my parents are mathematicians. Everything is in math. They used to say, that especially my mom, say that 10% of your life is what happened to you and you don't have control over it. So, and that 10% could be a war in Sudan, could be anything within, without your control. So in that case, I was asking myself, I didn't have control over the war. I didn't have control when peace is going to come. So they said you need to be resilient. And to overcome that 10%, you need 90%. And that 90% is how you react to it. Because you remember talking about my past saying that you can bring down a mountain. But when you have that mountain in your life, when you have that problems in your life, what matters is how you react to it. So to overcome that 10% that you don't have control over with, you need 90%. And that 90%, your behaviors matter, your attitudes matter. So for me, in order to overcome that, I have to change the attitudes. I have to adapt the resiliency. I have to adapt always to be upbeat. So at that in 1989, I tried, no, from 1989 up to now, I have been upbeat. Whenever I have a bad day, I say this is not the end of my life. I always try to put a smiling face. Sometimes I teach in the Syracuse School District, and my student ask me sometimes, Gabriel, when are we ever going to see you? You don't have your smiling face. And I told them, when you are failing my class, that is the time that you, and that is the time that you will see me. So really, that is what keep me going. When I have a bad day, no, I say, I don't give up. I said I need to be resilient. I began in school when I was 13 in 1990. So a child starting in school in 1990 at age of 13, and now I have a master's degree. That is because of my parents, because they taught me the values of hard work. There is something to it. The United Nations official visited the school, visited the refugee camp. There was no school by then. And in our culture, when there are visitors or when there is somebody important coming at your home, you always prepared either good food or something. And probably you will see it in the film. Hendro can attest it. When we went, people were so friendly, despite the fact that they didn't have anything to eat. We slept without paying anything. What was really very. So in that sense, we were told the visitors from the United Nations were coming, and we were told to prepare very extensively, dancing for them. And after they came to the camp, we danced for them, they left. As a young child, and that is how I learned, I questioned myself. So they left, and this was me. I didn't have enough blankets, nothing to eat. So I began to question myself, what was so important to those people? Why did we dance for them? At some point, I realized what was so intriguing was how could poor Westerners going to a refugee camp and more than 20,000 refugees dancing for them? I realized that what was so intriguing was I need to be like those people. I need people to dance for me. So one time, as I was coming, discovering and answering, with finding the answer, I realized I thought that when you finish college, then when anybody see you, people will dance for you. But later on, I discovered with education, you can really be instrumental. You can bring change. Nobody can cheat you if you know how to read and write. And that is the problem in Sudan. Because Sudan was a colony of British, and in 1956, British gave power to the Arab in the north. And then they became second masters, colonizing the African. And because our fathers, if my dad and my grandfather knew how to read and write, they would have not been cheated. Because the declaration was written and they didn't know how to read and write. So declaration was declared and they were called to dance and then everything is okay. But they didn't know what was written. And that is why I'm so passionate about education. That is why, because if you are educated, then you cannot be cheated. And if you are not educated, or if you don't know how to read and write, it doesn't matter which language, you are equivalent to somebody who is blind. So with my idea of dancing came another war in a refugee camp in 1991, because the government was a socialist government. So the socialist government was overthrown, and the incoming government were being supported by the Sudanese government. So we had literally left the camp at the gunpoint, and that camp was we ran away for our life, and we came to another refugee camp in Kenya. So I was in Kenya for 9 years, and it was just a refugee life where you eat only one meal a day, and nobody take care of you. It was just you by yourself. And for me, adapting the values from my parents to always be resilient and to always work hard, I began school there and resumed the schools. And my education, my high school education later on helped me. I participated in a drama. I was chairperson of the debating club. That was part of my life in a refugee camp. The Lost Boys. Actually, they borrowed the Lost Boys from Peter Pan. In 2000, the United States government sent their representatives to interview us, because every year the United States Congress said they will sit down and locate the number of refugees entering into this country. So in 2000, they approved about 4,000 from Sudan to come, and those 4,000 were specifically from Kakuma, whom they call the Lost Boys. So they borrowed that from the Peter Pan movie or the book to really describe our situation, because we are a generation that has been lost in Sudan. We grew up without our parents, and that is really what they are trying to do here. But I think all of us have wisdom too, like my father, because all the Lost Boys believe that education is our mother and our father. And that really speaks in volume, because without education, then I would have not been here standing in front of you. And even without teachers, because education, you have to get it from somebody. So that is something that I always talk to my students, that you need to respect your teachers, because they are giving you the skills that you need in order to survive. Yeah, that was some of my culture shock. Snow, Andrew and Jen can attest there's no snow in Africa. It's very, 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 very hot. Yeah. Ordering American food, I'm a very global-minded person. So when I first came here, 4 days, remember going to African village, and 4 days your good friends or your host family took you to a restaurant. So in this case, I spent 4 days here, and one of good-hearted American took me to a restaurant, to a Subway. There was a big line on the Subway, and when you enter, you ask what kind of bread do you need, Italian and all this. So I choose wheat bread because I like wheat. Then the next step was to choose. I was hearing people being asked, what do you need, Italian cheese, American, or Swiss? So when it was my turn, I was asked, what do you need on your stuff? And I told them I need an African cheese. So they laugh at me and they say, Gabriel, there's no African cheese.